Namaskar. Welcome to new session and new topic. Uh, what we consider today as yoga is what we are taught, and today yoga has become something for well-being in modern world, materialistic world. We don't not want to live materialism, but we want a state of well-being. This is a paradox in itself. To be in mundanity, to be sunk in mundanity, to be embracing mundanity, to be clinging to mundanity, and then looking for well-being is in fact uh, a contradiction. Anyway, today we want to be in our mundane life, deeply sunk in mundane life, cling on to mundane life, not leave it at all. And then we want a sense of well-being. And then we are trying to bring in or interpret yoga that way, that it is good for mankind, for well-being. And then we have certain ideas about what yoga is. Today's idea of yoga is it is physical culture, well-being, by some asanas and by pranayam. Pranayam is kind of physical exercise, and something to do with the breath is pranayam, and maybe topping on the ice cream, something called as meditation. So this is what is our idea of yoga is today. We can't imagine yoga without putting on sportswear, having some mat spread on the floor, and do some body movements, and then some postures, take up some postures, do some postures, some body kriyas and some postures, and do some breathing exercises, and maybe, as I said, topping of on ice cream, like a kind of meditation. And we trace the source to this yoga, source of this yoga in Patanjali. Every practitioner of yoga is revering Patanjali and claiming that the origin is with Patanjali. We have diversified kinds of yoga these days, mutually contrary kinds of yoga these days. But then everyone claims origin in Patanjali. So it is perfectly right that in our process of education about yoga, we try to have little more formal kind of education and at least information about what Patanjali's yoga is. And therefore we will be embarking upon taking a kind of bird's eye view on Patanjali's yoga. This is textually available, and then there cannot be any argument about what Patanjali's yoga is. So we are going to have bird's eye view or kind of overview on Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And we commence with invocation, which is so familiar to the yoga clan, even modern yoga clan. So we will be chanting the prayers, look into the meanings of the prayers, and then proceed to take an overview of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Patanjali Darshana. Harihi Om. Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिम्. Prostration to sage Patanjali, who composed the treatises on yoga for purification of mind, treatise of grammar for purification of speech, treatise on Ayurveda for purification of body, and thereby remove the impurities in our embodiment. Humble prostrations to sage, who is human in form up to the trunk, who is wielding a conch, sword, disc in hands, who has a cobra hood of 1,000 heads and pure white body. Salutations, prostrations to sage Patanjali. There is another invocation to Patanjali which you find in Vyasa's comment. Vyasa in his commentary commences with this kind of invocation. Yastyakva rupamadyam prabhavati jagato nekadha nugrahaya prakshena klesha rashir visham vishadharo nekavaktrasu bhogi सर्वज्ञान प्रसूतेर भुजग परिकरः प्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीश्य सवोप्यात् स्थित विमलतनुर्योगदो योगयुक्तः. The one who gave up the original form, that is the form of Adishesha, gave up his poison and became poisonless, appeared on the planet for the well-being of mankind, who destroys kleshas in various ways, who has coils of the snake for whose pleasure all the knowledge is created, who has an immaculate white body, who is the bestower of yoga, who is yoga by himself, and who is the Ananta, the celestial cobra. Ananta, protect us, protect us, protect us. So no doubt Patanjali's treatise is for human well-being. But basically one should be human being. Just by having a human form, it really doesn't justify to say that somebody is human being. It is by one's conduct, one's thought process, one's conduct of life, one's outlook towards the world and towards the universe will only prove that somebody is human being. So in that sense, Patanjali's treatise is definitely for well-being of human beings. Now, Patanjali's treatise on yoga called Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and then together with the commentary of Vyasa and other classical commentators, it is called Patanjali Yoga Darshanam. Basically, Patanjali's text is a darshana text. It is not a text on Yoga Shastra. It is a text on Yoga Darshana. For Yoga Shastra, you will have to look at the texts of Yogi Yagnavalkya, and then so many texts such as Hatha Yoga Pratipika, Gheranda Samhita, Shiva Samhita, Goraksha Samhita. There are so many other texts, they are on Yoga Shastra. And then of course Bhagavad Gita is also on Yoga Shastra. It is perhaps the most accomplished text on Yoga Shastra, the Bhagavad Gita. So, Bhagavad Gita is Yoga Shastra text. Shiva Samhita, Gheranda Samhita, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, Goraksha Samhita, Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati, Yagnavalkya Yogi Yagnavalkya Smriti. So these are texts on Yoga Shastra. Therefore, Yoga Shastra and Yoga Darshana should be seen distinctly. Yoga Shastra will deal with yogic processes, yogic technology. The technology of yoga, technology of the embodiment, technology for the embodiment. That is Yoga Shastra. Yoga Darshana means it is Darshana Shastra. It is totally different. In the sense, Darshana means a philosophical system. So Patanjali actually penned down a text on philosophy of yoga. Not the technology of yoga as much as you would get in Yoga Shastra texts. There are so many Yoga Upanishads, Dhyana Bindu Upanishad, Yoga Chudamani Upanishad, Yoga Kundalini Upanishad. So there are a set of Upanishads called Yoga Upanishads. They are on Yoga Shastra. Bhagavad Gita is on Yoga Shastra. Various Samhitas such as Simha Samhita, Gheranda Samhita, Hatha Yoga Pratipika, Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati, Goraksha Shatak. So these are all Yoga Shastra, where they will mention about asana, pranayam, bandhas, kriyas, mudras, and that's the technology. And that is Yoga Shastra. Whereas Patanjali's text is on Yoga Darshana. Darshana means a convention to formulate a philosophical system in the Vedic culture. So, the convention is that the Darshana Shastra should deal with certain subjects. They should be columns. They are like columns on which Darshana Shastra is structured up. So, we should be little familiar with Darshana Shastra if we are going to embrace Patanjali's treatise. If you are going to understand and embrace and try to follow and be led by Patanjali, means we have to have little understanding of Darshana Shastra. And to be practicing yoga, the technology, the asana, pranayam, bandhas, mudras, kriyas, etc., then we need to take recourse to Shastras, the Yoga Shastra, and even conduct of life, etc. So Bhagavad Gita and other, they are all Yoga Shastras. So basically we have to understand the yoga that we are doing, for practical purpose. It doesn't justify to say that the source of all this is Patanjali, because Patanjali is philosophical system. Those who are really averse of any philosophical tenets are even embracing yoga, and they accord the parentage to Patanjali, which is contradiction in itself. Anyway, the Patanjali is a Darshana Shastra, and Darshana Shastra means there are certain columns set by a long convention, long tradition. Now, what are those? The first of the columns of Darshana Shastra is so important because Darshana Shastra is a knowledge acquiring process, knowledge construction process, knowledge evolvement process, knowledge structuring process. So, it's a knowledge structure. Philosophy is a knowledge structure. Darshana Shastra is a knowledge structure. So, one of the columns of Darshana Shastra is epistemology. That's called Jnana Mimamsa. That means it deals with very process of knowledge. Because before we go for knowledge, it is important to consider the process of knowledge. What are the means of knowledge? What are the instruments of knowledge? What is the realm of knowledge? So, Epistemology deals with very process of knowledge as to how the knowledge comes up. Now, we very well know that yoga, Patanjali's yoga has to do something in a major way with chitta vritti. That's why chitta vritti nirodha yoga. That means chitta vritti. Now, the fact of the matter is that there is no knowledge at all, whether valid knowledge, invalid knowledge, proper knowledge, improper knowledge. There is no knowledge process without a chitta vritti. So chitta vritti is a major tool for all knowledge processes. And therefore, Patanjali deals with chitta vritti, the ways of chitta vritti, the kinds of chitta vritti, the origin of chitta vrittis, the purpose of chitta vrittis, the modes of chitta vrittis, the functions of chitta vrittis, to be discussing or deciding, or rather mentioning chitta vritti nirodha process. This is all implied that you must know what is chitta vritti, why is chitta vritti, how is chitta vritti, about what is the chitta vritti, what happens by chitta vritti, what has to be done with chitta vritti, the pros and cons when the chitta vritti is there, which is acceptable, which is rejectable. So, the knowledge process is based on chitta vritti, and therefore there is first process column of Darshana Shastra. It is not only Patanjali's Darshana that there is epistemology. Any philosophical system of the lore deals with epistemology, because any philosophical system is going to deal with knowledge process, be that Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Vedanta, as theistic or Veda adhering darshanas, and then Veda rejecting darshanas are also there, such as Bauddha darshan, Jaina darshan, Charvaka darshan. So many other darshanas are also there which are on the threshold, such as Maheshwar darshana, Raseshwar darshana. So many darshanas are there. You will get the list of darshanas in Sarva Darshana Sangraha. So Charvak darshan, Jain darshan, Bauddha darshana, Nyaya darshana, Vaisheshika darshana, Sankhya darshana, Yoga darshana, Mimamsa darshana, Vedanta darshana. And in Vedanta Darshana, you have various branches such as Madhva Darshana, Ramanuja Darshana, Nimbarka Darshana, Bhaskara Darshana, Shankara Darshana. So Dvaita Darshana, Advaita Darshana, Vishishtadvaita Darshana, Dvaita-Advaita Darshana, Bheda-Bheda Darshana, Shakti Vishishtadvaita Darshana, Shiva Vishishtadvaita Darshana, so Shrikara Darshana, Shrikantha Darshana. So many Vedantas are there. Vallabha Darshana. So there are several Vedantas. Then there is Panini Darshana, Maheshwar Darshana, Raseshwara Darshana. So many darshanas are there in our tradition. And all these darshanas give utmost importance. The first foundational aspect of it is epistemology. Jnana Mimamsa. So how the knowledge is structured. The subject matter of knowledge, the purpose of knowledge, the function of knowledge, the cause of knowledge, the effect of knowledge. So all these things are there in knowledge process. Then that's the epistemology. We will try to have more elaborate understanding when we really look into Patanjali's darshan and epistemology of it. But that's the Jnana Mimamsa. That is why I want to tell you about it. Then, now the Jnana is going to come where? The Jnana is going to come in Chitta. The Jnana is going to come in mind. So, therefore, there is something called as psychology, Manasa Shastra. So psychology is another branch that is called Manasa Shastra, because the knowledge is going to come in the mind, and therefore there should be some study of the mind, how the mind should be or how the mind gets knowledge. So there is psychology, Manasa Shastra is another branch, another column rather, which is raised up by any philosophy. So every philosophical system deals with mind, and Patanjali exalts here. Okay. Then, being a Darshana Shastra, it also deals with the whole creation of the universe, because our knowledge pertains to creation. We do not have any knowledge outside the creation. Do we have anything? So our all knowledge pertains to creation. So it deals with the creation, process of creation, that is cosmology. So every philosophical system will have to speak about this. The whole knowable, how does it come about? It comes through the creation process. Nothing is out of creation process, and therefore cosmology is another branch, another column, with which Darshana Shastra has to deal with. Patanjali also deals with cosmology. Find out any trace to this in modern concept of yoga. It is only for physical well-being, mental well-being. Keep yourself fit and carry out the nonsense of life in a prolonged life. Live long and carry out the nonsense for longer and longer and longer time as far as possible. In modern yoga, is there any thought process about how the creation came about? Why the creation came about? Not at all. But in Patanjali's treatise, it is an important column. It's an important pillar. Cosmology. Then in this creation, we see so many things: living, non-living, sentient, insentient things. The whole universe is made up of sentient, insentient things, living, non-living things. So these are only two categories that we have in the world. In the creation, either it is animate or it is inanimate. Either it is sentient or it is insentient. Either it is living or it is non-living. So, therefore, there is an inquiry into it as to what is the ultimate phase or stage of living and non-living things. What is the ultimate status of living and non-living things? Or what is the origin of non-living and living things? What is the original status? That is called ontology. So, ontology means going towards the cause of everything. We see so many objects. So, we should try to identify the cause of those objects. After the cause is identified, then the cause of the cause. Then cause of the cause of the cause. Then cause of the cause of the cause of the cause. And then cause of the cause of the cause of the cause of the cause. So ultimately we will come to primordial cause, for which there is no cause. So causeless cause. The first cause, primordial cause, primary cause, first cause. So that is the status of all things in this world. Like today in modern physics, in its branch of nuclear physics and particle physics, they take back everything back to an atom, and then subatomic particles called proton, neutron, electrons. So everything that is there in the phenomenal world is constituted by proton, neutron, electron at the nucleus. It might be water and fire. Both ultimately, if you go to the nucleus of water and fire, it is proton, neutron, electron. So that's the first cause, according to modern physics. So similarly, the first cause has to be identified. And then we have to see how the things are evolved in creation process. That's called ontology. So what is the original and source status of living principle and non-living matter, non-living things? Because non-living things are always matter. Non-living things are always things, while living things are always beings. So what is the original status of all beings and what is the original status of all things? So that is called ontology. And the cosmology and ontology are branches of metaphysics. Okay. So see, this is also an important column in Patanjali's treatise. In our modern yoga, is there any chord with this inquiry? Not at all. Keep fit, keep fine, be happy, that's all. This is what this modern yoga is, neo yoga is, neo spirituality is. But Patanjali has that important column with which he deals in his text. So that is metaphysics comprising of ontology, cosmology. There is one more branch in metaphysics. See, there is so much of creation. There are so many things, so many people. Many times we feel that with regards to some people and some animals and some creatures, these are useless creatures. Say, very practical minded man might think, why at all there are bed bugs and mosquitoes? It would have been wonderful to be without bed bugs and mosquitoes, because what is the use of it? Not only that they are not used, they are useless, but they are harmful, they are problematic. That's for man. So man only is so selfish to consider everything from his view, and then he says so many things are useless, so many worms are useless, the poisonous snakes are useless or harmful. It would have been better if the creation had done away with all those things. So we see many things as negatively purposeful or purposeless even. Many things are purposeless. See, so many stars and planets in the sky. One might question materialistic man, practical minded man, what is the use of so many stars? 2,000 million stars for naked eyes. What is the use of these stars? Celestial bodies. They are useless to us, and therefore we think they are useless. So we see so many things. There is a vast expanse of universe. Some 16,000 light years. It has a spread of 16,000 light years and still expanding. What have we got to do something with that part of universe which is some 15,000 million light years distance, or 16,000 billion light years distance? What is the use of it for us? So we think this universe has abundant of useless things. They should not have been in the creation at all. So there is superfluity in God's creation. So many things are unwanted. So many things are useless, and useful things are in scarcity. This is the thought of man. When the man has very, very man-centric, human-centric thought process. That's called anthrocentricity. Man is so anthrocentric that he looks at universe from his perspective. What is useful? What is useless? What is harmful? What is bountiful? So what is harmful for you can be bountiful something else. A living creation on the planet. There are so many things which are useless to us are useful to other creatures, which are harmful to us are bountiful to other creatures. So what is harming you, the insects and worms and etc., is food for lizards, is food for sparrows. They are food for birds. So it is their bounty. The anthrocentric thought process, it doesn't justify to be called as human beings. We cannot be so anthrocentric and say we are human beings. Anyway, so there is a branch to just inquire into whether everything in this universe is useful. How? And it is useful. It is postulated by Darshana Shastras that it's God's creation, it is all useful. Then how it is useful? Useful to whom? It is all useful to living principle. All living principles are there in not only in human beings, they are in other animate creation also. They have a life principle, they have a living principle. So the whole creation, the huge creation, the creation over our head that we see at night times to have idea of universe, because we cannot see beyond in eye level unless we raise our heads up towards the sky and eyes towards the sky, then we will know that there is huge expanse and nothing is wasteful. So that is called teleology. So what is the purpose of all these things lying around us, lying on the planet, lying outside the planet, lying in our Milky Way, our galaxy, lying outside the galaxy, lying in so many galaxies? What is the purpose of all this? So that purpose is explored, and that is the branch called teleology. What is the purpose of this creation? So that this is another branch of metaphysics, and Patanjali has dealt with it. Do you have any idea about this aspect coming into Patanjali's text, apart from few asanas and few shvasayamas, few kriyas and bandhas and mudras? This is what our yoga is. Asan, pranayam, kriya, bandha, mudra. This is what our yoga is. Pranayam means shvasayam. Whereas this is an important column. It's not just titularly there, nominally there. It's an important column called teleology. So cosmology, ontology, teleology. These are branches of metaphysics, and they are independent columns in structure of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Then the man to be human being, in the sense not anthrocentric. Human being is only human being when he is not just human to things on the planet, but also human to outside the planet. Whereas the modern man is unfortunately called all that is outside our planet, or anything from outside planet, as an alien. Now, if we are going to be positioning ourselves in opposition of the whole creation outside this paltry planet, the earth is not even a dust particle in solar system. If you compare the expanse of solar system and then universe, and we are on the dust particle, we are all inhabitants on this dust particle in the cosmos. And then we are only trying to be friendly to, at the most, global community. That doesn't entitle us to be called as human beings. We have to extend this Maitri Bhav, this friendliness and this indebtedness to even beyond the planet, to whole solar system, beyond the solar system to whole galaxy called Milky Way, and then beyond the galaxy to all those billions of galaxies which are in the universe. Human being has more responsibilities. If you just break away this shackle of anthrocentric thought process, human-centric thought process, you will understand what are the responsibilities of human being. What are the goals of human being? You just can't be good human by being a good human. We will have to do something on universal scale to be good. Anyway, so the whole philosophical pursuit works for becoming of mankind. The becoming of mankind to be fit human being as conceived by the whole cosmic scheme, not the global scheme. So the becoming has to be extending that much. We can't just be good family man, good person in society, good person in nation, good person in a continent, good person in the whole globe. But we need to go beyond. So, Darshana Shastra is for one to evolve for spiritual samam bonam, paramartha. So paramartha means spiritual samam bonam, human spiritual samam bonam. The highest point that human beings should be reaching, aiming at, and then evolving to become paramarthikataha a good person, a good being. Then it's not a person, it's a good being. So that is called spiritual samam bonam. So philosophy divulges reality. And the dharma, which is not religion, dharma is that which helps realize the realities declared by philosophy. So philosophy postulates realities and dharma helps one realize the realities. So dharma is for becoming, and the philosophy, darshana, tattvajnana assists in becoming of a human being. So all this becoming is so important. It is not just knowing. Indian philosophy system doesn't just believe in knowing, just knowledge. But it has importance, it has given importance to becoming of mankind, to realize the realities, to experience the realities, to realize the realities, and to be in realities. To be in realities. That is Paramartha. So, then what is the practice mode? What is that to be imbibed? What is that to be inculcated? What is that to be practiced? What is that to be making manifest within us? So those are all the practices for mankind. If you recall, I said yajna, dana, tapas. So something there is suggested that what we must do. Yajna, dana, tapa, ahar, vihar, achar, vichar, etc. So something we need to do. So that is called Achara Dharma Niti Pranali. So that is another column. So these are the columns on which Patanjali's treatise is structured. So what has to be done? Patanjali doesn't just divulge realities. As a darshanika, he also gives the ways and means, the sadhana and sadhana, the means and practices to really evolve oneself. We all speak about evolution of the consciousness, human evolvement, evolving the consciousness. What is this evolving consciousness? It is by dharma, achara dharmaniti mimamsa. So he has given a scheme which is called achara dharmaniti mimamsa, and every darshana does this, has to do it, must do it, has done it. So these are the columns: epistemology, psychology, cosmology, ontology, teleology, and ethico-religious practices. Ethico-religious. Religious means not religion in the sense of isms, but how mankind should evolve the consciousness for it to become cosmic consciousness than just remaining as human consciousness. So these are the columns in Patanjali's text. So we will have to open out the text, decipher the text, and identify all these aspects, columns, having a structure. That is studying the Yoga Sutra formally. So we are going to do that. Now look into the Patanjali's text and find out how these columns are structured. This is what we are going to search, explore. And that is Patanjali's yoga. So once again, finally I say, it is not putting on some sportswear and have some gadgets and have some mat laid on the floor and then do some body movements, or hold the nostrils with your fingers and then do some breathing exercises, or do some kriyas and mudras, bandhas and mudras, etc. Or then do some meditation, so-called meditation today. That's our idea of yoga. Now I give one little, the curtain opener for you to understand what is really Patanjali's yoga. So we will not be misled by anyone and everyone saying that this is Patanjali's yoga, what we do is Patanjali's yoga, what I teach is Patanjali's yoga, what you are learning is Patanjali's yoga. So this is a curtain raiser, so that we will not be misled. The education is so important so that we are not misled. That's why I brought this in this scheme of education about yoga. Anyway, we'll now decipher this in our following sessions. So enough for the day today. Namaskar all of you.